Welcome to Hahnemühle Community Days. We're only in day one, and it's 3 p.m. here in the East Coast. We've had some inspiring presentations today, and we've got a lot more this afternoon, tomorrow, and Thursday. So if you haven't checked the schedule, please do. I'm Kevin Graham. I'm the Eastern U.S. Sales Manager and Canadian Sales Manager for Hahnemühle. I'm based in the Metro New York City area. Digital Silver Imaging joins us this afternoon, and this is going to be really great. Eric and Andrea will be talking about digitizing your film for printing, and we're all shooting more film. I guarantee you we're all shooting more film. Started by Eric in 2008, DSI remains the first and only New England-based photo lab to integrate photographic laser technology. Classic black and white. Eric and I can talk all day about this. Also pigment, inkjet printing, mounting, matting, and framing. It's a full service place. Andrea joined in 2010. DSI is also a Honolulu Certified Studio. This is an impressive organization. It really is. Please visit their website for more. But tell us where you are in the chat, and for questions, drop them in Q&A. Andrea and Eric, it's all yours. Thank you again and welcome.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. We appreciate the introduction and the time to be here with you as a bastion of photo experience here hosting this this webinar. This is great. So I'm grateful to be here, just, being able to talk a little bit about what we do, and also really kind of the importance about digitizing film, which is a big thing, whether you're currently shooting film or have binders full of it somewhere. Yeah, as Kevin said, we're a full service operation. We do everything from scanning and printing to mounting, matting, and framing. Whether you have a single piece or an entire exhibition, we certainly hope you'll give us a chance to talk to you about your work. So just a little housekeeping. We are going to go kind of through some steps here that were announced. We're going to talk about different scanning methods, kind of do's and don'ts, file format choices, post-production, obviously the importance of calibration, and then a little bit about how you can work with a Hahnemühle certified studio. And as part of that, we're going to give you a real live tour of our facility. So I'm going to walk you through the lab, show you a little bit about kind of what behind the scenes operation looks like in a professional printing place. So I look forward to sharing that with you as well. Andrea, is there anything else we want to talk about before? Well, we're also going to show you a kind of a video that we've put together on how our digitization system works. And then after that, I will sort of be talking about the various methods and ways that people have scanned and options and tools available to end users out there as well.
So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. And we'll do a brief Q&A at the end, but we only have an hour, so we've got to keep this moving. So maybe if you could just keep your questions to kind of general questions and not specific to kind of hardware, like, where do I get an upgrade to this piece of hardware or that piece of hardware? So yeah, I think we're ready to roll.
And the only other thing I will say is Andrea will post a link to our page on digitization, but also our email address where you can email general questions to us, and either Andrea and I or someone else here at the lab will be happy to kind of answer your questions. So feel free, if you have something more specific that doesn't get answered in the Q&A, or that you feel like, at 4:05 today, you have a burning question that didn't get answered, just send it away. So Andrea, I'm going to let Andrea show our little video. It's about 4 minutes. So grab a nice glass of water, a cup of coffee, or glass of wine if you're in a different time zone.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if I can get this going. Hold on a second. Oops. Oops, that's not it. 1 second here. Okay, now I got to go back to.
You got it. It's up there.
Oh, was that up there?
Yeah, no, you had it. Yep. Go ahead and just hit go back to where you were. Now you can just hit play.
You can see it now, Eric? Yeah,
yep.
There.
Imaging. Instant Image Archive Service. The value of your archive of film, prints, and related documents depends directly on the quality, flexibility, and accessibility of that archive. Digital Silver Imaging's Instant Image Archive service delivers drum scan quality digitization at a very affordable price. Our service can handle any film format, as well as flat prints and artwork, up to 20 by 24 inches. Your film is loaded into precision-made metal holders. No oil or fluid mounting is required. At the heart of the Instant Image Capture service is a Phase 1 digital camera. The Phase 1 produces a best-in-class 150 megapixel capture, but high resolution isn't the whole story. Our system uses specially designed flat field lenses and a series of extension tubes for proper magnification and consistent edge-to-edge sharpness. Once the appropriate lens is mounted, the system is laser aligned to ensure that the image sensor is parallel to the precision machined base. Lens cast calibration is used to guarantee even lighting with every lens and extension tube combination. The lighting we use is rated at 98 out of 100 points on the Color Quality Index, and our touchless negative holders and archival practices make our instant image capture service compliant with the Library of Congress's FADGI guidelines. This is a claim that cannot be made by drum scanning or other legacy digitization methods. Amazing digital hardware needs equally amazing software and skilled technicians to process the digital files. To accomplish this task, we use the Capture One Cultural Heritage software application. A significant obstacle in the digitization process of color materials such as Kodachrome and C41 negatives is the conversion. These processes require specialized knowledge, a practical hand, and a large array of custom-built profiles. We bring knowledge and experience to creating superior digital captures of all film types, photographs, and flat artwork. Our philosophy is that every client's needs are different, and we craft a solution to meet those needs. Our instant image capture service is ideal for photographic prints and flat artwork up to 20 by 24 inches. We start with a custom color profile for each piece of artwork using an X-Rite color target. When large files, color accuracy, and 16-bit reproduction are required, our service is unmatched. Our instant color capture service is fast and affordably priced, consistently lower than most quality art reproduction services. Once digitized, we can also make FineArt Inkjet prints, also known as giclée prints. At Digital Silver Imaging, we can also mount, mat, and frame your fine art reproduction. To discuss your digitization needs, please contact us at info@digitalsilverimaging.com or by phone at 617-489-0035. Digital Silver Imaging, fine art printers, mounting, matting and framing services, digitization, and print delivery worldwide.
Great, thanks,
Okay.
Andrea.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate that. So we just thought we would show that just because it really gives you a good walkthrough of our entire system that we do here. But we understand there's a lot of questions about digitization in general, what's been done over, in prior years and so forth. So, having watched kind of the evolution of digital, we've watched scanners and methods of capture vary for quite a few years. So some of you may have had old Epson scanners. Maybe you had the Minolta Dimage or the Nikon Cool Scan. Maybe you've had a chance to work with an Imicon, or, kind of what the top of the line solution has been up until now has been drum scanning. my experience in scanning and kind of understanding what has happened over the years is that because of the time it took, and also because of the cost of memory back in the day, is that people often scanned based on whatever the initial need was. So someone called and said, "Hey, can you email me some of your photos you shot at the World Series game or the whatever?" And for that reason, you'd want to scan low resolution, maybe a megabyte or two. Somebody may call you up 6 months later and ask for a piece that goes into a book. So maybe that's 8 by 10 at 300 DPI. Or maybe you're going to make a large print. So you go, okay, I'm going to scan that at a higher resolution that's good for printing. So one of the issues that a lot of photographers have is they may have scanned a lot of their work, but it's been scanned at all different resolutions and in some ways in all different methods, different scanning technologies, different solutions, none of which are bad. There's just, one of the problems is people often say, well, I've got an Epson scanner, what should I scan this at? And I think that's always a critical piece. So in terms of options available to people today, there are, the Epson scanners, which are flatbed scanners. And most of the scanning methods today all do a good job of getting, what you're trying to get. The most important thing to always think about when you're using a scanner today is we always recommend scanning at the highest optical resolution of any scanner. Because of the time and the cost involved now in memory, it really makes the most sense to scan at the whatever the optical resolution of your scanner is, which means don't up-res it with the software. You're better off doing that at a later date in Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever your post-production tool is of choice. And one of the things we always encourage people to do is always to scan your film flat and open, meaning, don't be sure not to clip any shadows or highlights. You really want that curve to be as gentle as possible. Again, you're then giving yourself as much information and file detail to work with later. If you clip too much, or if you try to get it to look absolutely perfect in the scan, you are giving yourself less information. It's almost like the difference of shooting a JPEG or shooting RAW, right? Give yourself as much information up front and utilize that information for your project. I think that so if we think about some of the methods available today, I mentioned flatbed scanners. They do, for sheet film and larger format film, they do a great job. For roll film, you're just not going to get the Dmax and the detail you might want if you're trying to make prints. I think what's great about those flatbed scanners is you can put a whole bunch of negatives in there and create like a digital contact sheet really quickly and at a pretty reasonable cost. And then you could kind of determine which ones you want to scan at a higher resolution. Then there are also people have some legacy scanners out there. I know some people who still use the Minolta Damage or the Nikon Cool Scan. And again, those are certainly, they were, considered top of their line in the day, but maintaining those, operating those now can be a challenge. I think some of those are still SCSI connections. So you have to make sure you've got an older Mac or an older PC in order to run it. So I think that can be an issue for that type of a product. We had an Imicon scanner for a number of years, and while we loved the scanner and did a great job, it was definitely time consuming, especially when we had larger jobs to do. But if you have access to one of those or want to work with one of those, those are still great scanners. One of the problems that we ran into that concerned us was that a couple of years ago, Hasselblad, which now owns the Imicon, or they became the Hasselblad scanners, announced that they were no longer going to service the machines, meaning no parts, no service, or anything was available. And so as a lab, that really caused some concerns for us. And I do see that Barry just posted in the chat that he used an old Creo Cytex Eversmart Jazz scanner. And those are also great big flatbed scanners. They were sort of the first scanners of their type that were flatbed that really did a great job of scanning edge to edge, giving you a complete scan on the whole XY axis, which was better than, say, an Epson scan, which typically had what was called a sweet spot in the middle, where the scans were sharpest, kind of like an old enlarger, right? Your edges on an enlarger would have a little fall off, and I think that the Epsons had that problem, but the Creo Cytex series really did a great job on dealing with that. So Barry, thanks for posting that, because that is one that I had forgotten to mention.
Eric,
yeah.
I just want to throw out there that maybe since we have our audience is pretty manageable today, maybe if in the chat you want to just put, if you're currently scanning your negatives, if you put what you're scanning your negatives or your prints
Yep.
or your transparencies on right now, just kind of just list it in the chat so we kind of know what to do. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yep. Jennifer said, okay, the Hasselblad flex type, that's great. So,
yep. Yeah. So the top of the line thing was to go to a place, unless you had one yourself, that operated a drum scanner. Drum scanners were definitely have always been considered the top of the, like the Mercedes of getting your film scan. And the way a drum scanner worked, for those that don't know, is that it was a cylindrical drum. Your film had to be oil or fluid mounted in some ways. It used to be oil, and then they've come up with different fluids where you have to immerse your film in fluid, and then that's attached to the drum. It spins at very, very high resolution. And again, you could determine which resolution you wanted to do depending on the output requirement. So the beauty of drum scanning and the fluid mounting was the ability to sort of get extremely high resolution, and the fluid mounting in some cases helped minimize some dust and minor imperfections in the film. The drawback is how time consuming and how expensive drum scanning is. If you're trying to get a 300 DPI scan for, say, printing a 30 by 40 print out of a piece of 2 1/4 film, it's about an hour and a half to do that piece of film. And labs are charging anywhere, depending on where you go, anywhere from $75 to $150 for that product. And I see some other other scanners that people are posting. The Pacific Image Scanner I see, and some of these film scanners that allow you to scan directly off of a whole roll, like I believe the Pacific Film Scanner does, and some of the old Kodak scanners is, fast, quick, not intended for a super high resolution. But when you want to see your film and try to make edits, it's like making a contact sheet in the darkroom, right? We made contact sheets so we could decide which images to print. We just didn't pull out a strip of 35mm negatives and make 8x10s of each one. We made a contact sheet. So the Pacific Image Scanner and the flatbeds all do a great job for that.
Yeah, I know a lot of labs, Eric, I just want to throw out there too, that if you're getting your work scanned at a lab other than digital silver imaging, especially a lot of labs that process film, they use a lot of the Frontier Fuji scanners that do a pretty good job and allow them to scan a lot of images quickly, but at a fairly low res.
Yeah, they'll either mention that they have a Noritsu or or as Andrea said, a Frontier film scanner. So just to go back a little bit over some of the other things we want to touch on is, kind of the importance of like scanning do's and don'ts. I always have felt that scanning at maximum resolution was always critical, because you just want to scan once, and you can always go down in resolution, but you can't take a 300 DPI 4x6 JPEG and then boost that up to make a 16x20. So our recommendation is check the optical resolution of your scanner and scan at that whatever that is on your scanner, whether it's Canon or Nikon or Epson or whatever. And then, as again, I mentioned, on these scanners, if they have digital ice or that kind of dust and scratch removal, I would turn that off, especially if you're scanning black and white film. The digital ice software at least in the past, has always caused issues around film grain and trying to sharpen film grain, which causes an issue. And, you know, obviously we talked about scanning flat and open. And again, as I mentioned before, the purpose of that is to make sure you give yourself as much detail and information to work with in post-production. You know, not clipping highlights, not clipping shadows, and really kind of a long, slow and gradual curve so that you can really fine tune that in whatever editing software you're using, whether it's Photoshop or Lightroom. And I have also gone into edit in some of the plugins that are available through Nix software, which I think do a great job of working your sort of fine tuning and working in those files. So the other thing, in terms of any other, you know, in terms of file format choices, I think one of the things that, you know, people often ask whether they save in JPEG or PNG or TIFF or RAW. You know, with our system, we can give you a raw file. But you really do have to ensure that you have Capture One software. And I'll go a little more detail about our system in a minute, but you know, scanning in TIFF or JPEG is, you know, I would always scan and save your file out as a TIFF. Super, super important.
So Eric,
yeah,
we have a question, and I think we should go back and address this. So Michael asked, you know, what do you mean by flat and open as far as a scan goes?
So when I say flat and open, it really kind of means that when you're doing your initial scan, that really visually it's going to look a little gray to you because it's, you know, the shadows aren't, in other words, it's not looking like your perfect zone system, black and white negative, that it really, the shadows are open and the highlights aren't blocked up. And once you get that into Photoshop, you can then really fine tune and bring your shadows more where you want to, as opposed to this, you know, the scanner is really intended to do one thing, that's, you know, that's capturing the image. But Photoshop is really intended as your editing software. And so maybe that's what I want to be clear about, is that you really want to be able to have your file look as open as possible, kind of like this one here that, you know, this instant image capture shot of the hoses on that fence, you know, that is a very kind of gray looking image. I would not say that that's a fine art, you know, ready for printing, but that's how we're going to deliver a file. If we're working with people, you can sort of see the shadows back in the tree in the background. You know, they're still a little open. And the highlights are really kind of more in control, because what we're doing there is just giving as much full tonal range detail as possible, so that then you can fine tune and edit that in your editing software.
Yeah, you can still see that in this negative that was scanned, it was a 4x5, that there was a little density in the sky. Now that, you know, in printing, you could make the choice if you wanted that to be completely white or to lose it. I mean, you can see in the corner here, there might be even a little fall off vignetting, but that's all coming through in this very flat scan.
Yep. So in terms of, you know, the system that we're working with, and one of the reasons that, you know, it has some advantages, and I will address also before I jump to our system, is I know a lot of people are shooting, there are different systems out there for, you know, digitizing your film with a variety of digital cameras today. I've seen systems where you can place your iPhone on top of a device and shoot film. Again, not, you know, if your idea is that you just want to kind of capture this and see what you have on that roll you just got processed or some older files, that's totally fine. If you want to, you know, scan some stuff and throw it up on social media, that's totally fine. You know, when you step up and you go to some of these other systems that are out there, like the Toaster and some other systems that have been created by different people, you know, you are getting a better high quality resolution, and it can also be a lot faster. If you think about the time it takes to scan versus the time it takes to, you know, fire your shutter, it's a lot faster. So there are systems out there where you can put your 35 millimeter DSLR onto a rig and capture it, and get very, very high resolution files. And I know, we have a number of clients that are working that way. They get a DSLR, they get a good macro lens that has edge to edge sharpness, and they're working that way as a way of digitizing their archive. And again, not a much better system than I would say than say the Epson flatbed, or even like an older CoolScan, or that it's not going to rival a drum scan, but it will definitely get you excellent quality if that's the way you want to go. And some people don't want to send their film out. Some people don't want to, like the full control, and they want to do it themselves, and that's totally fine. The sort of the top of the line option is really what we invested in. This system has been made available, our instant image capture service. This is a system that's been available to institutions and archives since 2005, and they're at leading museums and institutions all around the world. Harvard, the Library of Congress, Getty, they all have these systems that have been designed around a phase 1 medium format digital camera for really unbelievable high resolution. And the software, the cultural heritage software that is kind of like a component of Capture One software, having worked with the Library of Congress, this is the only system that shoots 16-bit and gives you a file that meets Library of Congress standards. So it is really a system that is unfortunately not readily available to the end user. Until we went out and invested in one. We're the only lab in the country that I'm aware of that has actually invested in this top of the line system. And it really does open up the opportunity to get very, very high resolution scans at a much more affordable price. So Andrea's pulled up this file. All of this information is on our webpage, on the scanning page, that talks about the different types of scanning available, what the file formats are, how quickly it can be done, and so forth. So rather than going through this whole thing, we encourage you to go to our website to get this kind of information.
Right. And I just want to throw in here, Eric, that, I think that, everyone posted what kind of equipment they use in there. And I think that it really basically comes down to a couple of things. And that is of course, if you say the quality has to be good, and that I mean that the color has to be good and the sharpness has to be good, then it really comes down to two things after that, which is, I think, resolution and speed. So I know that some of you that are using, let's say an old CoolScan, the quality of those CoolScan scans, the Nikon CoolScan are really quite good, but they take a long time, and you need a legacy system. And that I mean, if you have a brand new Mac, running the latest OS, you're not going to be able to run that CoolScan on that computer. Yeah. So, and even with the Hasselblad, X5 scanner, we used to use those in our lab, but they take a lot of time, at the highest resolution to scan that. So if you have that kind of time, then that's great. But maybe for a larger project, you would look to either using a service like ours or investing in a DSLR system to capture your images.
Yep. And then the other thing, obviously, that speed is one, and cost is another. So one of our you'll see on our site, we talk about having worked with Elliot Irwit on his archive, and we were able to do 3,800 negatives, different formats, in about 2.5 weeks. We were averaging anywhere from 300 to 400 digitizations per day, and that really, is a game changer for a lot of people. The ability to get drum scan quality files that meet FADG4 standards in a fraction of the time and the cost. I mean, Andrea's chart shows the cost of drum scans, and we start at $50 for a single capture, but we drop pretty quickly when there are multiples frames of the same file, same film type. So it's, you know, it's important to keep that in mind when working with us or anybody else that you happen to be working with. If you're reluctant to ship film, we've actually provided a shipping case, which was on you'll see information on that on our scanning page. So we'll send you a Pelican shipping case to really ensure that your film travels safely. Michael, the price list should be on the page there where you can see a table with all the pricing. It should be on there.
So Eric, I would just want to interject one more question because Richard asked, does the software you use make a difference? And he mentioned Silverfast. Do you want to field that, or do you want me to field that?
Yeah, so in terms of, you know, I would say some of the software that you get directly with the scanner that you've purchased is fine, whether it's the Epson Scan or the Nikon and so forth. Silverfast, the folks that developed the Silverfast scanning software, we used to use quite a while ago. So I don't have any current working knowledge of the Silverfast, but I will say that they really they did a really good job of dealing with scanning and giving you adequate tools for manipulating and controlling the scanner, even better than the manufacturer's own software. So that is a great product from what I remember. I can't speak of it really specifically now. And, you know, one of the other things that Joyce just asked about Kodachrome slides and file size. But I also want to just reiterate too, that one of the real tricky things about scanning is, as we mentioned in our video, is the issues with Kodachrome slides and the color cast that you can get, and same thing with negatives. And what's really great is the whole cultural heritage system, which is an additional component to Capture One software. They've really done an outstanding job of developing and creating profiles for us that really help deal with some of those issues, which is a huge problem. In some of the tests we've done for some of the National Geographic photographers that we've had the good fortune of working with, they've really noticed a difference between what they were getting on their end versus what we can provide.
I think
and in terms,
too that Eric, just want to throw out there too that for if you're shooting color negative film, that conversion can be particularly tricky, especially if you're doing it. You know, you're probably going to have to do it in Photoshop, and you might want to start building some profiles if you're prolific in Photoshop. We have our own profiles built in our digital heritage Capture One system. But that can be very problematic. So if that's what you're doing, you know, and you're kind of teetering back and forth on whether to do it yourself or using a lab, you might want to try a lab first, or just try doing a couple directly from the negative to see how that conversion is going to go for you.
Yeah. How are we doing on time? We're at 3:33.
We're at 3:30.
Yeah. So calibration was obviously something else that we want to touch on. I hope anybody that is doing anything serious with their images today, and I mean serious, like where you're working with you're creating an archive, or you're doing any printing. I hope you've invested in one of the monitor calibration tools that's out there. It is so important. It'll totally get you much closer to where you need to be. And when I'm saying, profiles, I'm not talking about view profiles or like working with a lab and getting soft proofing profiles. Because I don't think that's an accurate science. I'm just talking about profiling your own monitor. It's a piece of hardware. I know Spider makes them. We've been working with X-Rite, and now the company's Calibrate. Yeah. We've been working with them for years, and these pieces of hardware can cost anywhere from 160 on up, but you owe it to yourself to do this, because I guarantee if you've if you're not calibrated and you've sent a print off to be printed somewhere else, or you have a decent Canon or Epson inkjet printer, your prints are probably looking darker than your monitor. And that's because your monitor is not calibrated. So, you know, you might be burning through a lot of sheets of paper at home, or being frustrated by wherever you sent your print because they just don't look close enough to your monitor. So I would just really want to encourage people who are, you know, going to the next step and finally getting ready to print your images, that you really take the time to invest in this thing and make sure you're recalibrating and profiling your monitor every couple of months, because these do shift. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to get ready to give you a little tour. And Andrea, I don't know if there's anything that's been posted in the Q&A yet, but I'm going to get ready to talk to you about, you know, why we're excited to be a Hahnemühle certified studio. And, you know, again, just so you can kind of see the back workings of a professional print shop. We've had the great fortune of working with a number of great photographers and doing exhibition shows, but we love working with individuals who just have a passion for the print. You know, we really believe that the image isn't finished until it's printed and hanging on your wall. So, you know, if you've got one or two pieces, that's fine. If you have a show or an exhibition and want to talk to us and get some of our ideas and input, you know, we really are a resource. We can really kind of give you some interesting ideas of ways of displaying and showing work. So I'm going to turn off my video for a minute, Andrea, and if there's anything you want to answer, I'm going to get up and get ready to walk around the.
Yeah, so I guess at this point, this might be a good chance to, you know, either if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A or in the chat and we can get to that. But also, once you've scanned your image, you know, then what's next? So, you know, as Eric mentioned, we're really hoping and praying that you have a calibrated monitor, because otherwise you're just guessing about color and contrast. And then from there, export your file. And as Eric mentioned earlier, that TIFF is probably the best format to store your file in. Some printing services require a JPEG. So for example, we will print from a TIFF or just about any file format for our custom prints, but for our online printing, we ask for a JPEG. You know, TIFF is a better format, but there's really not a huge substantive loss as long as you're not, you know, reworking that JPEG format over and over again. So yeah, Michael asked, do you have a branch in Los Angeles? No, we don't. However, if you have a large archive of work, we can come and digitize it at your location. So we actually have a van that will house our digitization equipment, and or we can just bring it out there directly. So, and as Eric said, you can also ship it to us, and we can arrange for secure shipping. And Veronica, we are going to be at your house in about 2 weeks. And so I don't know what's for dinner, but looking forward to it.
Andrea, can you hear me right?
So yeah,
okay,
I can hear you, Eric.
We are having a little trouble with the video here, and I'm not sure why. So give me a second.
We're getting good video of the ceiling right now.
Oh, how about now?
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny because it wasn't showing up on my side. It just shows a still. So just going to walk by kind of our front space here. Everybody can wave to Jen, who's diligently working. She's our main person here. So if you call and ask questions, she's going to be here to help you out. And I laid out kind of a bunch of our papers that we work with here. And we can talk a little bit about that. So now I'm going to kind of walk back through our lab and into the inner sanctum. Hopefully my employees aren't doing anything crazy. Oh, look at that. Here they all are. And we've got people working, and there's some of our silver gelatin papers that we didn't talk about yet, but we do make real silver prints from digital files.
Eric, point it down a little bit.
Yep, point it down. Where's the other thing? Oh, we moved it to the back. Okay. That's one of our processes that we do, where Joe is actually working on our silver print process, so we can actually go directly from a digital file onto a wet chemical black and white silver gelatin paper, which is, can we see all that? That's exactly what this is. So this paper is still wet.
Show them the processor, Eric.
Oh, the processor is right here. I'm sorry that I can't see what I'm doing because it's not showing up on my side. But anyway, yeah, that's our processor. It's 52 inches wide, uses Ilford chemicals and fixer and all that stuff, so we can actually make real silver prints. We do custom framing and mounting here as well. So our team has been working on this nice piece that's gone into a frame with spacers on a print we did here, a beautiful pigment print. And the other thing I was going to show you when we talked about profiling, Joe has set out here. Andrea, is that showing up okay?
Yeah.
So we actually create all of our own custom profiles. So we use another X-Rite product. So what you're looking at are papers that have been printed out with this color swatch, and then this tool right here is actually is able to read in each one of those color patches. And so we create custom profiles for each one of our inkjet papers that we work with. So, which is better than, obviously if you're printing at home and you have your own printer, you can download custom profiles from the paper manufacturers. But this is really the best way to do it from a lab standpoint, because we can really maintain really tight control. And it's one of the reasons that we are a Hahnemühle certified studio. So going to spin around just to give you a little more of a tour. That press, that big old print mount press we use for flattening our silver gelatin fiber prints. And these are some current prints we're working on. This is kind of cool. I don't know if any of you have seen the Hahnemühle metallic, Photorag metallic. It's really a fine art paper that has this beautiful, luscious silvery finish, but it's the only one that's a fine art paper that has that. And so I really love how kind of the tonal quality and the luminance of the print looks really, really great. So again, just walking you back through, that's a 60-inch wide mounting press so that we can mount images up to 60 inches wide on a variety of substrates, whether it's gator foam or dye bond or aluminum or face mounting, all different services that we offer here at Digital Silver Imaging. So anyway, I think that's what I wanted to show you.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are asking too that, what do you get from a Hahnemühle certified lab? And I guess the answer to that is you get quality, museum quality, in our case, prints that are repeatable every time. So, we're constantly monitoring our systems, calibrating our monitors, checking the output of our inkjet printers and our black and white printers with densitometers, and we creating our own custom paper profiles. And you say, well, why is that important? I mean, I can get a profile for a paper online. Well, to be honest with you, and this is not a slight against Hahnemühle, because they actually, their profiles are some of the better profiles, but they're not as good as our profiles to match the paper, because they don't take, I don't know why, but our profiles just result in better prints. A lot of the profiles, I think, are old or haven't been updated, especially with other paper companies. And also, when you're soft proofing on a screen, you're not actually seeing ink on paper, you're seeing a simulation. So we always say, basically, just work in a calibrated monitor. Adobe RGB 1998 is probably our preferred environment. And you'll probably be amazed at what you get as a result.
Yeah, and just maybe a little addendum to what Andrea was saying about custom profiles. For us, we're using the Canon Image Prograph printer, and that is when we're creating profiles, it means we're using our printers and our inks and Hahnemühle papers. So it's very, very precise. And Hahnemühle, when they make profiles, are dealing with whatever printer they have at that given moment when they're making their profiles. So they make excellent profiles, but they're not using your printer that's at home. They're not using our printer that's here at the lab. So it's really just kind of the next level up that really focuses, it narrows it in as closely as you can to everything being controlled in one environment. So that is one of the things that makes us a Hahnemühle certified studio. And then Michael asked a question about the black and white. So the black and white, and is it Michelle or Michael? I'm sorry, it looks like it's Michelle. I'm sorry, Michelle. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. So it is a true silver gelatin black and white paper. It is exposed with a laser enlarger. It looks like a big MRI machine. It's using a red, green, blue laser. And then it's exposing it in total darkness with a laser. And then that is then put into the black and white processor. So you are getting a traditional silver gelatin print. The light source is not a condenser bulb and enlarger, but it's still a light source and photochemistry. So it's really the best of all worlds. It's the control of digital with the beauty, nuance, and classic feel of a real silver gelatin black and white print. And then you asked what makes a print archival? Archival, I think, is one of the things we really try to talk about with people in terms of what is the application of the work? Where is it going? Is it short term? Is it going up in a restaurant for short-term display? Or are you going part of a festival where maybe archival isn't the most important thing, but having a nice looking print is really important. So in that case, we might recommend like the Hahnemühle Photo Pearl or something like that. But archival really comes down to a couple of factors: the inks that are being used, whether they're pigmented inks or not, and the paper. And there are cotton rag papers that also have what are called optical brightening agents. You'll see this term called OBAs, and the OBAs can make a paper pop, brighter whites and all that. But the problem with optical brightening agents is that they can actually break down before the inks of the paper will. And when I say break down, I mean like shift in color. So your FineArt Inkjet print on a paper that has some OBAs in it would shift in color before a completely OBA-free paper. And Hahnemühle does a great job of listing their papers on their site with which papers are completely OBA-free or not. And when you call and you talk to Jen or me or anyone else here, we're going to be able to tell you which are the more archival papers. So that's really what I mean by archival. And yes.
Just to jump in on OBAs, because it's a great topic. We hear this all the time. You're right. OBAs will not affect the archivability or longevity of the print, but depending on where it's stored and how it's stored, the paper could shift back to its normal base tint. But to Eric's point earlier, if you want a contrasty paper, you want a bright white paper, that's what you get. And Eric and Andrea's staff can guide you through the process. And that's the advantage of dealing with the certified studio. They're experts on our paper, experts on the process from soup to nuts all the way through it.
Yep. Thanks for that, Kevin. Yeah, that's true. So I'm wondering if we've missed any other critical questions. We've only got about 10 minutes left here.
Yeah, we have a question from an anonymous attendee who said, can you explain more about the profiles in this cultural heritage system? Do you mean scanning profiles for specific films, such as films no longer being produced? I have a lot of stuff on Fuji NPL, a tungsten-based film.
Yes, so it's a great question. They are scanning profiles. So in other words, once we've scanned the film, just like applying a color profile in Photoshop for a particular paper or other type of profile, this is a profile that's being applied after we've scanned the film. So you have that raw film scan, right? Shot with the Phase 1 medium format camera, you bring it into the Capture One Cultural Heritage Edition, and you can apply different profiles that have been built based on legacy films that aren't available anymore. But obviously, just like you have older Kodachrome or older Fujifilm, they've been able to create these essential profiles for these different film types.
So Eric, we have another question from Bill who says, do you have recommended profile settings page on your website, such as D50 versus D65, Adobe RGB, etc.?
We do not offer that for those different types of
color spaces.
Yeah, the different color spaces and the D60 versus the D50, D65 versus the D50. So I'm sorry we don't offer that.
But I think, you know, Bill's question is, we do recommend Adobe RGB as the color space that you use. And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but I think that's because there's a lot of different color spaces, you know, like Lab, which is a really great color space, but it's very large. And it kind of, it's so large that what's available in inkjet printing won't, you know, it falls, so much of that Lab space falls outside of that color space.
The gamut, the gamut.
The gamut is so broad that you won't get what you're working with. So you're better off working in Adobe RGB.
Since I'm big on analogies, the analogy I have is that a lot of the camera manufacturers kept on boosting up their sensors, but the lenses that went with them couldn't often resolve some of the resolution. So they, you know, all these companies had to make these special digital higher resolution type lenses, I believe, to sort of work with that. So, you know, our monitors keep getting better and better, and a lot of that is, you know, done for editing, special video editing, but the gamut of a monitor is still super high.
Yeah, and inks just they might not catch up just because of the nature of the medium. So, I also want to mention that I posted our email and my own email in the chat. So if you have more specific questions or how to work with us or just about anything, we kind of pride ourselves as being a resource. You know, I'll do my best to answer that. We had a question very early on that I thought was interesting. Someone asked, you know, what's the difference between a G-clay and an inkjet print? And there is actually no difference at all. That term was coined. It may have even been coined by, oh shoot,
Iris printers.
Iris printers.
It came out with Iris printers.
With Iris printers, because they were trying to differentiate themselves from, you know, typical plotter printer. And G-clay is French for squirt. So it sounds fancy, kind of.
You know, so I just want to also recap here on some of the stuff about scanning and printing, and you know, as Andrea said, we want to be a resource. So one of the other things I will point out, just on the printing side of being a Hahnemühle certified studio, that we do offer, because the myriad choices in papers, you can go on our website and we do offer what's called a print sample promotion. I know our friend Veronica, who's on here, often reminds me to tell you about it, but it's a way to take your file, whether you've scanned your own film or had us scan it, or whether it's original digital capture, you can upload it to us, but you get to select 3 different papers. They're all printed 8.5 by 11. We offer a great price on it. You get a $25 coupon back with your first order. So it's really just a great way to also be able to see your image on different paper types. And I think that's really critical, because we've done other webinars with Veronica on selecting the right paper for your print, which is, those are available on our YouTube channel. But another really critical thing to keep in mind that we do offer as well in terms of our scanning services.
It's a great point. I mean, papers are emotional choices, and what looks good to Eric, to myself, to Veronica, to Andrea might be different. So having these prints in front of you is valuable as you work towards that final goal.
Yeah, I also think that there's also, you know, I think a lot of people get locked into a paper type, and then they don't, you know, they think, well, that's my paper and I have to print on that. But there's lots of different applications, you know. So for example, we have photographers that, you know, for example, have a print that goes to a gallery for sale in a gallery. But then they might do an exhibition, like let's say at Photoville, where the actual exhibition might be outdoors or in a shipping container, lots of weather, very short term. You know, for that, you know, that fine art Hahnemühle paper on 100% rag base might not be the best choice. They might want to go to a photo-based paper. for that exhibition because it's just going to go up and go down. So
yeah, great point. It is about applications. And to your point, Andrea, just because you don't like glossy doesn't mean your prints should be printed on glossy. So
right.
the folks can guide you through that process. And as Eric said, the PhotoRag metallic, we've done very well with it. And if you're looking for something very different and outside the box, then that's something worth taking a look at.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So we have one quick question. I don't know if we have more time here, but
well, the only thing I just wanted to say is in terms of that printing point, which is really true, that I really want people to keep in mind, which is such a hard, it's the biggest disconnect. We're all looking at monitors right now that are backlit and beautiful, and you know, whether it's a high resolution Apple monitor, or a BenQ, or a, you know, all the other great monitors are out there. Keep in mind, folks, that when you're looking at an image on a monitor, it's backlit. It's kind of like looking at a transparency, right? When you go to make a print, all of a sudden you're looking at a front lit kind of, you know, reflected light as opposed to a transmissive light object. Such a different experience. And so keep that in mind when you're getting ready to print. That that's one of the issues where you know, what you see on your monitor, it can never truly reflect the print for that very reason. It's transmissive light on a monitor versus reflected light in a print. But don't let that stop you from printing. You've got to really physically hold that object to really know what you're talking about. And so that's just my 2 cents. And I know there was another question in there.
Yeah.
What was the other question?
Yeah, so I have two questions. I'm going to answer the first one. Ross asked, the print behind Eric, were they scanned in and printed or straight from file? And who are they?
It's a mixture. So the one up here is photographed by Herb Green of Bob Dylan in the center with the dead. I don't know if there's too much glare on it or not. I don't know if I can fix that, but I'm sitting across from a window.
Yeah.
This photograph is by my friend Matthew Bitton, who was Lenny Kravitz's photographer, photographed with a Leica digital SLR. These two over here, Alicia Savage, they are definitely digital works. And the nice black and white triptych down here are 3 4x5 negatives, scanned and then printed. So that's a silver print, and the rest are all fine art pigment prints.
Yeah, that's a toned silver print, sepia toned.
Yeah,
we can tone them too. So I have two good questions here. So I don't know how we doing on time. We have 3 minutes, so we have to make our answer quick. So Yoram asked, what about soft proofing?
So I am not a fan of soft proofing, and I frankly don't believe in it. And I'll tell you why. Soft proofing sets up disappointment for everybody, because we send you a file that will emulate what your print is supposed to look like. And then I send you that print and it doesn't look 100% like you thought it was supposed to look. So that's one reason we don't do it. What we really encourage people to do is to do our print sample promotion. We do not edit those files whatsoever. We send it back to you without making any adjustments. So you're actually looking at your prints exactly as you sent us that file. Then we can really fix whatever the problems are. So soft proofing, I don't believe in. That's just my long history of being in this industry. And the other—
That also gets back to what you're saying about custom profiling, is how the custom profiler matches the actual specific printer as opposed to just a generic printer in general. So, you know, when you kind of look at a profile you upload from online, you know, given your monitor and all the other variables, you are just looking at an estimation. So in a lot of ways, you're better off just calibrating your monitor and working in a consistent color space.
Yeah.
So our next question is, and I think this is going to be our final question, is comment on the light to view prints under.
Yep. So I am not in an area where we ever look at prints. I am out in the open. When I walked you through the lab, we have no exterior lighting back in there. And although my employees don't like not seeing daylight, the advantage is our light is incredibly consistent. It's always the same. And we are using daylight balanced LED lights in the back. And when Joe or Annie are doing their print evaluations, we are using one of these little print viewing booths for editing the prints. But if you're working and looking at home, looking at prints on home, just try to stay in a place where there isn't a lot of, you know, I'm literally under 3 different light sources right now. So we do not do that kind of work out here. Try to have it consistent, one source, shades drawn, or some sort of filtered lighting, but daylight balanced is really the best way to look at your prints. So what is that, 5,500 Kelvin, I believe. So we appreciate everybody's attention today. Glad people got some stuff out of it.
Fantastic, as usual. And I will say this from my own experience and knowing Eric for 25 years. He is my go-to guy. When I am stumped, Eric gets a text or a phone call from me saying, I need a little bit of help, Eric. These guys are good at what they do. So I thank them both. Hahnemühle thanks them both. We thank Digital Silver Imaging for their longstanding support of our brand and our product. And thank you guys for all that you do. And thanks for telling me stuff that I always am amazed at what goes on out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
thanks
you,
for having us. Yeah, thanks,
Veronica.
Hahnemühle.
Thanks, everybody. Sean. Thanks. Yeah, bye.
Yep. All right. Good luck, and hope everybody will keep watching some of the other programs.
Yeah.
Put on a great, valuable program here for you. So stay tuned and check out their other offerings.
Yeah, bye.